The story opens by introducing Kim Dokja, a student whose life is quite ordinary. But Dokja has one thing he loves, a novel titled Way of Survival. He isn't just a fan, but the only devoted reader who followed the story to the very end. The novel tells of gods who punish humanity through unimaginable suffering.
When the world was on the brink of destruction, the main character, Yoo Jong-huk, appeared along with his companions who fought against despair. Unfortunately, after a few episodes, most readers found the story exaggerated and unrealistic. However, Dokja kept reading until the very end, for he admired Jong-huk's unwavering spirit to rise again after every defeat.
Unfortunately, in real life, he was just an ordinary young man who was often bullied and lacked the courage to refuse, even when he was forced to fight his own friend.
After graduating from college, his life didn't change much. He became just a contract employee at a company. Then came the day when two major things happened at once. First, the final chapter of Way of Survival was released, because Dokja was the only one still reading it. Second, his work contract ended. He decided to send a message to the author, thanking them for the incredible story. However, he also criticized the ending for being too tragic and ruining the previous arcs. He wrote honestly, hoping the author would create a more beautiful version of the ending.
On his way home, by train, Dokja met his coworker Sang-ah, whose fate wasn't much different. She was also a temporary contract employee.
Not long after, their lecherous manager appeared and started flirting with Sang-ah, promising her a promotion. But quickly, Sang-ah pretended that she already had plans with Dokja.
안녕하세요, 부장님.
그럼 또 봐요.
At that very moment, Dokja suddenly received a reply from a mysterious account named TLS123, the author of the novel himself. In the message, the author thanked him for faithfully reading the story and asked Dokja to write his own version of the ending, just as he wished.
내가 뭐?
Before he could think any further, the train suddenly derailed and came to an abrupt stop. A strange voice echoed, saying, "The free service of System Planet 8612 has ended." In an instant, Dokja remembered those exact words. They were from the very first chapter of the novel that was burned into his mind. Moments later, a bizarre creature appeared, resembling a floating pumpkin-like doll. It tried to give an explanation, but the passengers protested, assuming it was just a system error. One man shouted at the creature, enraging it. Without mercy, the creature fired a laser from its eyes, killing the man instantly. The creature then announced that the gods had declared judgment upon humanity, the most selfish race in the universe. From that moment on, everyone would live through survival scenarios. The first challenge, kill one living being within 10 minutes to earn 300 coins. Those who failed would die. The horror began. People started attacking each other, desperate to kill for survival. Amid the chaos, Dokja noticed a little boy clutching a glass box that held his pet ants. Meanwhile, an invisible wall had sealed off every possible escape route. Then, Dokja saw him. Yoo Jong-huk, the main character from the novel he had read for years. At that moment, Dokja finally understood that the world of Way of Survival had become a reality, and he was the only one who knew how the story would end.
Dokja's gaze then fell on the glass box holding the little boy's ants. From there, he got a brilliant idea to clear the first survival rule. He took a few ants and handed them to Sang-ah so she could survive too. He planned to help everyone eventually, but the chaos was too overwhelming for anyone to notice what he was doing. Without hesitation, Dokja killed one of the ants. Instantly, the system announced that one participant had completed their mission. Only then did everyone stop and listen to him, realizing that the term living being included not just humans, but also animals and even insects. Unfortunately, the number of ants in Dokja's hand wasn't enough for everyone. Chaos broke out once again when the greedy manager appeared. He tried to snatch the box of ants for his own survival. Dokja then saw a man about to kill an old woman. He rushed in to save her, but was shocked to realize that the man was Kim Nem-ham, one of the characters from Way of Survival. Knowing how weak he was, Dokja quickly exchanged the 300 coins he'd earned from killing the ant for physical strength. However, Nem-ham had already received a sponsor's power and immediately activated his dark transformation ability. In an instant, Dokja was once again beaten mercilessly.
In the midst of despair, Dokja noticed a capsule filled with ant eggs that had fallen near his feet. He quickly grabbed it. The system immediately registered hundreds of living beings dying at once, and Dokja was flooded with coins. Without hesitation, he exchanged the coins for enhanced reflex abilities, swiftly turning the tide of battle, and ultimately defeating Nam Ham.
많이 바뀌었어.
When the scenario's time limit ended, the system executed all participants who had failed. Their heads burst open one by one, including the old woman Dokja hadn't managed to save.
At that moment, the strange doll reappeared. It announced that the constellations, the identities of the gods watching from beyond Earth, were greatly entertained by the spectacle. The doll then added that those who survived now had the right to choose a sponsor monster from another dimension to gain new powers. But before anyone could react, the train suddenly shook violently, then derailed and plunged off the bridge. Through the window, they could see a massive aquatic creature relentlessly attacking. At the same time, a soldier tried to force open the door to let everyone escape. Dokja immediately recognized him, Lee Hyun-sung, one of Yoo Jong-huk's allies from the novel. Thanks to Dokja's instructions, Hyun-sung managed to force the door open, and the passengers scattered to escape. Amid the chaos, the little boy who owned the ant box refused to leave, furious at Dokja for killing all his ants. Dokja immediately picked him up and ran. But the ordeal wasn't over yet. The system suddenly announced a new challenge: to cross the collapsed bridge for a reward of 1,000 coins. From below, a massive water dragon surged upward, smashing the bridge apart. And to make the game even more brutal, the grotesque doll turned the fallen victims into zombies, commanding them to attack the living.
In that desperate moment, Sang-ah suddenly discovered a new power within herself. From her hands emerged strong strands of silk. Quickly, she used them to weave a crossing path for everyone.
From a distance, Dokja saw the main character fighting alone against a horde of zombies. The sight reminded him of a scene from the novel, that at Chungmuro Station the protagonist would die while facing the fire dragon. If that event happened, the entire world would be doomed as well. Realizing this, Dokja made up his mind. He would do whatever it took to prevent the death of the main character Yoo Jong-huk.
But since it was impossible for Jong-yuk to defeat the fire dragon alone, Dokja tried to warn him about the tragic fate that awaited. Unfortunately, Jong-yuk didn't believe a single word. He accused Dokja of lying and challenged him to prove his claim by throwing him off the bridge to be eaten by the sea monster. According to Jong-yuk, if Dokja truly could see the future, he would surely find a way to escape from the creature's belly. Without hesitation, Jong-yuk pushed him, sending Dokja plunging into the monster's gaping mouth. Inside the creature's stomach, Dokja discovered a hidden mission. It stated clearly that if he managed to kill the monster and survive, he would earn 9,000 coins. But if he failed, his life would end within 48 hours.
Moments later, the dock appeared again. Relying on his knowledge of the novel, Dokja immediately recognized its true name, Big Yang, a broadcaster who live-streamed the weather constellations to earn donations and climb the ranks. Big Yang was shocked that the human before him knew so much about his identity. Dokja seized the opportunity, proposing a deal. He would help Big Yang put on a spectacle that would attract the constellation's attention, earning him massive donations. Intrigued by the offer, Big Yang agreed. Together, they forged a secret pact, hidden from the eyes of the constellations.
And sure enough, Dokja's actions inside the monster caused Big Young's viewer count to skyrocket, flooding him with donations from the constellations. In the end, the two signed a long-term contract with a 50-50 profit split. But the situation took a deadly turn when acidic fluid began to fill the monster's stomach. Quickly, Doctor urged the doll to bring out his magic pouch, a rare item known only to a handful of beings. From it, Doctor purchased a toothpick which he cleverly used to plug every hole leaking acid. Thanks to his quick thinking, Doctor succeeded in killing the monster.
Dokja then took the monster's core orb and asked Big Yang to exchange it for an item called Eterofat. As a bonus, the doll also granted him a beginner core package. From it, Dokja chose a mask skin that allowed him to breathe underwater, enabling him to swim up and finally reach the surface.
As soon as he reached land, Doc Jia was flooded with notifications from various constellations eager to sponsor him. However, he rejected them all and asked Big Yang to disable the feature. After that, he hurried toward Chungmoro's station to find Jung Hyuk. On the way, hunger struck him, so he decided to stop by a convenience store. To his surprise, there were still survivors inside. Before they could even speak, a giant grasshopper suddenly attacked. Instinctively, Doc Jia grabbed one of the victims, ran for cover, and managed to save them just in time. The woman then introduced herself as Jiyoung Hee-won. Moments later, a group of people appeared, ones who had intended from the start to kill Hee-won and her companions. Realizing the danger, Doc Jia exchanged 1,500 coins for a combat skin, and so an unavoidable battle began. The battle was suddenly interrupted by the arrival of a well-dressed man, a figure unfamiliar to Doc Jia's memory. At the same time, Song-ah and the others were also there, and soon they were all reunited. Even so, Doc Jia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, because Yoo Jung-hyuk, the main character, was still nowhere to be found at Chungmuro Station, even though he was supposed to be there according to the novel's plot. From that realization, Doc Jia understood that the scenario at the station he was currently in was not yet over.
That meant he couldn't move on to the next stage until all the rules at this place were fulfilled. According to the mission, everyone at Gimpo Station was required to pay a tax of 100 coins per day in order to stay there. Soon after the well-dressed man revealed that Doc Jia possessed a large number of coins, the others began demanding that he share some of his wealth to save them. At that moment, Doc Jia finally remembered who the man in the suit was: Junin Ho, a monster who had long abandoned his humanity in exchange for power. Realizing this, Doc Jia refused to hand over his coins to such a creature. Instead, he resolved to complete the mission himself, to free everyone from the oppressive tax system and from the rule of the flesh-eating monster in the suit.
This time, the mission required them to eliminate all the monsters within the station area with no time limit and a reward of 5,000 coins for those who succeeded. Before starting, Doc Jia recalled Hee-won's story from the novel. In the original version, Hee-won had lost all her friends while fighting Jun In-ho in a convenience store and eventually died. But this time, Doc Jia had managed to change her fate by saving her. Now, Hee-won was a woman consumed by anger and vengeance toward the man in the suit, a figure who had deliberately left the scenario unfinished so he could rule over the station and steal coins from the corpses of those who had died.
After crafting makeshift weapons from wood and duct tape, they began walking along the dark, damp subway tracks. Fortunately, Gil Yang, who now possessed the skill to control animals, summoned a swarm of fireflies to light their path. However, the brief calm didn't last long. Soon, hordes of monsters came rushing in to attack.
Amid the chaos, Sang-ah was captured by one of the monsters. Doc Jia and the others immediately gave chase, eventually reaching the lair of the giant mole boss monster.
A fierce battle erupted, but in the end, they gained the upper hand.
Feeling cornered, the monster unleashed its ultimate technique, the illusionary hand prison. This power trapped its victims within their deepest fears until they died. Unfortunately, Hee-won and Yun-sung were caught by the illusionary hands, forced to relive the most terrifying nightmares of their lives.
As the situation grew more dire, Doc Jia summoned the doll to make a purchase from the store. He chose a pure white energy orb, a powerful item capable of breaking through illusions. With it, Doc Jia managed to slay the monster and save everyone. As a result of their victory, each team member received a new item. Hee-won obtained a pair of twin blades, Yun-sung received an arm guard, Gil Young got a toy-like helmet that could control insects, Song-ah gained a cloak, and Doc Jia himself obtained a broken sword. To restore the sword to its full form, however, he would need a rare item known as the Eater of Eat, still hidden somewhere.
Before they returned, Gil Young discovered a mysterious blue stone. Doc Jia explained that the stone could create an illusionary prison effect if swallowed, so he decided to keep it. However, his companions began to grow suspicious. It seemed as though Doc Jia always knew what was going to happen next. He simply smiled and said that he possessed the ability to predict the future. Hearing that, Song-ah asked when the world would return to normal. Doc Jia replied that the world would only be restored once they completed the remaining 99 survival scenarios. But there was a catch. Only one person could accomplish that: Yoo Jung-hyuk, the main protagonist. The problem was, Doc Jia already knew that Jung-hyuk was destined to die in the battle against the fire dragon.
And if that happened, the entire world would be destroyed. That was why Doc Jia resolved to complete the mission at Gimpo Station first, so he could break through the temporal barrier and find Yoo Jung-hyuk.
Meanwhile, Hee-won realized that to end this scenario and free themselves from this chain of suffering, they had to eliminate the monster in the suit. Without hesitation, she charged straight into a fierce battle against the suited man and his followers.
Even though her opponent could transform his arm into a monstrous weapon, Hee-won, driven by sheer determination, ultimately defeated him. But just as she was about to finish him off, the survivors intervened, stopping her out of fear that killing him might trigger a new, even more dangerous scenario. Amid the confusion, the man in the suit took the chance to escape, managing to slip through a barrier that no one else could cross. However, a sudden gunshot rang out. A bullet pierced his head from afar. He died instantly, and the system declared the scenario complete, allowing Dokja and the others to move forward. The shooter was revealed to be Lee Ji-hae.
As soon as the rules were completed, they were all transported to a new location, Cheongmira Station, where the next scenario would begin.
There, they had to survive the monster attacks by standing inside green boxes. But the number of boxes was extremely limited, causing panic as everyone scrambled to secure a safe spot. Ji-hae, who turned out to be Jong-hyuk's student, sent a message to Dokja, urging him to save himself because she knew where the next box would appear. According to Ji-hae, if Dokja survived, Jong-hyuk might be willing to cooperate in fighting the fire dragon and preventing the world's destruction.
But Dokja's seemingly selfish behavior left Song and the others deeply disappointed. They believed Dokja had changed, especially after he suggested sacrificing others to secure the green boxes. In the end, they chose to leave him. Moments later, monsters swarmed in and slaughtered everyone who failed to reach a green box in time.
Go.
Seeing the carnage, Dokja was filled with regret and immediately ran after his friends. He explained that the remaining green box was most likely located in the most dangerous spot, right between two red boxes where monsters were spawning. They decided to split into two groups. Dokja went with Gil-young, while the others headed in a different direction.
When they arrived, Dokja found that Jong-hyuk had already taken the last green box. Jong-hyuk said he was willing to cooperate in fighting the fire dragon on one condition. Dokja must put Gil-young inside the green box. With no other choice, Dokja desperately swallowed the blue stone and was instantly trapped inside the illusionary prison.
Inside the illusion, Dokja was forced to confront his greatest fear, the dark past he had long buried. He relived the moment when he killed his own friend in order to survive the brutal attacks of his bullies. That haunting memory consumed him until he encountered Jong-hyuk in another dimension. There, Jong-hyuk explained that the essence of every story lies in sacrifice, one life given to save another. Hearing those words, Dokja slowly lost consciousness, sinking deeper into the void.
After being trapped in the illusion for some time, Dokja finally regained consciousness. He was shocked to learn that his friends had protected him from the monster's attacks for 3 whole days. Even the soldier had been severely wounded just to keep him alive. Not long after, the second round of the scenario began. Dokja then announced that the fire dragon would appear that day. Moved by his friend's sacrifices, he resolved to take the place of the main protagonist and face the dragon himself.
He knew that the only way to defeat it was by destroying the core orb in the dragon's chest. Meanwhile, the doll assigned as the area's overseer decided to change the rules to make the scenario more interesting. It provided only one green box reserved for the person with the most coins, and that person was the old man everyone called Uncle. That's when chaos broke out, as everyone scrambled for their last chance to survive. Before things got worse, Dokja tried to convince Jihad to join him in executing his plan, but the girl flatly refused. She still wanted to seize the box on her own. In the end, with his resolve firm, Dokja approached Uncle and bought the green box for 100,000 coins. As soon as the box changed hands, Dokja immediately destroyed it to foil the doll's plan. However, his strength wasn't enough, so when Jihei saw what he was doing, she stepped in and shot the box until it shattered.
Now with no safe box left, Dokja asked Uncle to help him fight the monster.
Uncle then pulled out a machine gun and riddled the creatures with a relentless barrage of bullets.
Not long after, the fire dragon appeared in a terrifying form. Jong-hyuk, who was already on the scene, immediately stepped forward to confront it.
At first, Jong-hyuk seemed to have the upper hand, but the system detected that his abilities exceeded human limits, triggering a power boost for the dragon. In an instant, the difficulty level spiked sharply, leaving Jung Hyuk overwhelmed.
Dokja then joined the battle, helped by Gil Yong, who summoned a giant grasshopper, and Hung Sung, who unleashed all his strength.
When Dokja was about to destroy the dragon's core, the dragon suddenly recovered. At that moment, Jung Hyuk, who had previously fallen, rose again and fought with all his might until he fell on the battlefield, and causing the world to gradually begin disappearing along with him.
But when everyone was truly cornered, the author exchanged the Aether of Fate for the sea monster's core orb that Dokja possessed. Instantly, his sword became whole and shone brilliantly. With that power and the help of his friends, Dokja managed to destroy the fire dragon's core and bring the great battle to an end.
The victory came with a reward that could bring the dead back to life. Without hesitation, Dokja used it to revive Jung Hyuk. He smiled with relief, having successfully rewritten an ending of the novel that had previously been a sad one. Unfortunately, that happiness didn't last long. Amid their relief, the manager appeared, gravely injured, bringing news that humans outside had begun slaughtering each other. And at that point, the story continued into the next chapter of the film.
Okay guys, that was a storyline of the movie Omniscient Raider: The Prophecy. I hope you enjoyed the story I presented. I apologize for any mistakes in words or name mentions. That's all from 01, and see you in the next video.